I am going to be making a huge bioactive enclosure. This enclosure is going to go in my living room. It is going to be the main attraction whenever you walk into my house. That's what the back is looking like. And so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the sides. Honestly, for me, this is about as good as it's gonna get. It's not gonna get much better than this for me, so. Yo, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are doing amazing because I know that I am. Today's video is going to be an exciting one. I am going to be making a huge bioactive enclosure. So behind me, although you can't see it in its full entirety, is the enclosure that I'm going to be using. And it is, of course, a vision cage because as you guys know, vision cages are my favorite. So this is the model 734 vision cage, which as far as I know, it is the largest enclosure that vision cages makes. And it is 6.5 feet wide, 2.5 feet deep, and almost 4 feet tall. So a really, really large enclosure. I've done bioactive enclosures before. I've made videos about bioactive enclosures that I've done, and they never really turned out the greatest, but I mean, I did them. I thought they looked okay. This is by far the largest scale bioactive enclosure that I've ever done to date. So this is gonna be a task. This is kind of gonna be new for me, but I'm excited because I think it's gonna turn out really, really great. And I almost forgot to mention what reptile I'm actually putting in this enclosure. So I kind of went back and forth on this a lot. There's a couple of my animals that, you know, kind of need upgrades and that I was thinking about putting in the front. And so I was going back and forth about it. Obviously the animal that's gonna be in this enclosure needs to be one that's kind of more, I would say, eye-catching. It's more of a display thing, right? It's in my living room. It's gonna be one of the first things people see when they walk into my house. And so I really want it to pop, but I also want it to be reasonable for that animal, right? And this cage has a lot of height. So I don't wanna put an animal like, say, my anaconda in here that's gonna stay on the ground and not necessarily utilize that height. So I had to take that into consideration, and eventually I kind of narrowed it down, and I decided that I'm going to put Genie, my blue beauty rat snake, into this enclosure for a couple of different reasons. One, Genie is a beautiful snake, you know, that blue color that Vietnamese blue beauties have, really pops. And also he's a really long snake. This is a large enclosure, 6.5 feet long. Genie's about 8 feet long, but he's not a heavy bodied snake. He's a thinner snake. Also, another reason why I decided that he was gonna be the one that's gonna go in here is because he's very active, and obviously as a display animal for people when they come into the house and they check him out, he's one of my snakes that is actually on the more active side. And so people will have a better chance of seeing him. He's also diurnal, which means he's gonna be active during the day, and then he sleeps at night, which is always useful. And then on top of that, he's semi-arboreal. So he will utilize the height of this cage. And so I could put branches in there and he can really utilize it and climb, which is something he hasn't been able to do. So I'm excited to kind of give him that enrichment. So that's who's going into this enclosure. And like I said, I really want this cage to pop. It's gonna be a really easy setup, but it's just gonna kind of probably be a longer process just because of the size of this enclosure. And so I'm gonna basically just walk you guys through it, and we can see if we can get this enclosure done. So the first thing that I'm going to do, if you can see behind me, I have these large logs that I'm gonna be putting in this enclosure. And what I'm gonna be doing with these logs is they're gonna go in first, and I am going to screw them into the actual cage itself. Most of these other branches and stuff that I'm gonna be using for this enclosure are just gonna get glued to the sides using Gorilla Glue. But these larger pieces, I want to make sure that they're really, really sturdy, because the last thing you want is for them to fall onto any animal that you have in this cage. The last thing I want is for them to fall on my Blue Beauty. So I'm gonna screw these pieces in so that they're extra sturdy, and then I'm gonna go through, we're gonna do the glue, we're gonna put the dirt to get the backdrop and create that backdrop first. So that's kind of what I'm doing first. So first things first, let's screw these big pieces of wood into this enclosure. All right, so that first initial part is done, and I kind of changed my mind. I didn't use the really, really big log that I was gonna use, but I did use some smaller ones right there. So those are like the bigger logs that I'm gonna be using in here. So those are the ones that I wanted to secure with screws. So now what I'm gonna have to do is I have some cork bark, I have some other branches, and I'm gonna have to lay this enclosure on its back and kind of see where I'm going to put all these pieces. Because the next step after that is to lay the glue down and then to start actually like solidifying everything on the enclosure where I want it. So once the glue's down and once I put the whatever I want down where I want it to be permanently, I have little wiggle room to actually move it if I don't like where it is. So I like to kind of get a feel for where I want things to go first, and then I'll lay down the glue, and then we'll go from there and make everything permanent. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna try to film it for you. I gotta figure out a way to prop up my camera so that you guys can see everything. So yeah, let me figure that out and then we'll get going. Okay, so now I got everything where in somewhat of the area of where I want it. And remember, this is the back of the cage. So when the cage lifts up, this is gonna be the background. So now that I got it like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the substrate together that we're gonna put on the back wall. Basically what that mix is a mix of soil, eco earth, and then a little bit of moss as well to help with humidity. So all we gotta do is just mix that together. I got a bucket over here. We're gonna mix that together, add a little bit of water, and then we'll be ready to go, and we'll be ready to start the process of putting it here on the back of the enclosure. All right, you guys, so progress update. That's what the back is looking like. And so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the sides. And as you can see, I left a gap down there at the bottom. That's because the substrate, that's where the substrate's gonna go up to. So the substrate's gonna go up about 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches, and so I could plant my plants. And so you don't wanna put anything down there near the bottom because the soil is gonna cover it anyway. So just gotta do the upper part. So now just gonna do the sides and I'll be done with that, and then we get to start planting the plants. All right, you guys, we are back, and I completed the backdrop of the enclosure. Don't mind the clacking feet, that's just my dog. He's basically a horse walking around. But I completed the backdrop of the enclosure. So I think it turned out really well. Was able to mix the substrate together and then just added it to the back using Gorilla Glue, which I highly recommend when you want to do something like this and you want to add substrate as like a background. It holds really, really well. So now we're going to be moving on to the next phase of this process, and that's going to be adding the misting system. And before we get started on that, I should probably mention that everything that I've been getting for this Bioactive enclosure, I got from the Biodude. The Biodude is a store. You can get their supplies online. And they have everything for Bioactive enclosures. And no, I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. Surprisingly though, so usually you can shop for them online. I didn't know that their store, like their in-person store, is actually based about 30 minutes away from me. So I'm able to actually go into the store and get stuff, which is really, really cool because they have everything. Everybody there is really helpful, and the guy who owns it and operates it is really, really knowledgeable when it comes to bioactive enclosures. I mean, they have different substrates for different kinds of reptiles, and they have basically everything that you need. So I didn't want to continue this video without mentioning the Biodude because, like I said, that's where I'm getting all of these supplies from, including my misting system. So the misting system that I'm using is right here, and it is the Mist King. And this is just the starter misting system. So it's the basic model, and I'm gonna be hooking this up. I've never used it before, never hooked it up before, so we're gonna see how it works. All my animals right now are going crazy. I can't get any freedom, any alone time. They're all making noise, the birds yelling at me. So I'm gonna try to get this misting system up and going. I was told that it's pretty easy to set up, but we'll find out. So let's check it out. All right, you guys, so the misting system is installed. Sorry I didn't show you guys how to install it. It took a long time for me to do it. It's actually a really easy setup. Just since I didn't know how to do it, it was my first time, it kind of took me a while to kind of get the hang of how things work. But I was able to put it together. And so now it's installed in here, and you can see I can just turn it on from my phone. Give it a second, it takes a second for it to start up. Oh, maybe I put it in the wrong switch. Hold on. I promise it was just working a second ago. Okay, hold on. Okay, as I was saying, it does work. I just use my phone, turn it on, and boom, there it goes. Now, I can aim the nozzles anywhere. I haven't really decided where I want to aim the nozzles yet, but I just want to show you guys that. Come on, dude. But I just wanted to show you guys that it does work and that it is working. So now that we got that done, now that the misting system, dude, get your butt out of my face, bro. This guy. Now that the misting system works and I got it installed, now we get to do the fun stuff. This is always my favorite part of a bioactive enclosure, and that is planting it. So I'm gonna start getting my plants out. I'm gonna fill this bottom part with soil, and we get to start decorating, which is gonna be so much fun. All right, you guys, so as you guys might notice, I have this piece of plexiglass here in the front of the cage. That is because vision cages aren't really designed that well for bioactive enclosures because they're really short. The base is really short. And for these bioactive enclosures, you need a deep substrate, so you need to be able to put the substrate up pretty high so that the plants can grow. But luckily, Vision Cages sells their own substrate blocker strips, basically, which is basically just a piece of PVC that goes across the length of the enclosure. So I got one of those from Vision Cages, and that's gonna help keep the substrate away from the doors, as well as allow me to have a deeper substrate than what you usually would be able to have in a Vision Cage like this. So what I got here is the substrate, and this is a very specific substrate. This is the Biodude's Terra Firma substrate. And what's cool about this substrate is that you don't need a drainage layer. A lot of bioactive enclosures, you would need a drainage layer for, but this, it's designed to where you don't need one. So I thought that was really cool, and we're just gonna start putting this enclosure together, and I'm gonna start putting the substrate inside. Progress update, got some of the plants in there, filled it in with dirt. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put some leaf litter inside of the enclosure and some other biodegradable things, because once I put the isopods in there, that's what they're gonna eat. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some moss, leaf litter, and other biodegradables for those isopods to eat on the whole bottom of this enclosure. Again, All these supplies are from the Biodude. So I got some biodegradable leaf litter here. Just some more biodegradable things. I think this is like corn stalk or something like that. I don't know, but for the isopods to eat. Got your moss. And then I got this, which is BioShot, and it's a supplement for the microbacteria. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me see if I can focus it. All right, well you can't really see it, but it's called BioShot. It's from the Biodude, and basically it's just a supplement for the different like microbacteria that's going to grow in this enclosure, which is beneficial for the health of the enclosure. You cannot have enough of this stuff. Want to make sure the isopods got plenty to eat. Isopods are one of the most important parts of a bioactive enclosure because they're the ones who eat all the poop. They're the reason why you don't have to clean up poop in a bioactive enclosure, because they take care of it for you. So you want to make sure that they also got some of this to eat as well. Throw this BioShot in there. All right, so we are on the last step of completing this bioactive enclosure, and that step is adding the cleanup crew. So the cleanup crew is basically just bugs, which are called isopods, to go in here, and they're gonna be the ones that are gonna eat all the poop and all the nasty stuff that you don't want to have in there, so you don't have to actually clean. So they are essential. They're one of the most important parts about having a bioactive enclosure. So the two most common critters for the cleanup crew are these guys, springtails, and then also isopods, which I also have. So we're gonna go ahead and release these guys into the enclosure, and they're gonna start doing their job right away. So let's do that. You guys, the bioactive enclosure is complete, finally. I think it turned out pretty well. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if you guys think it turned out pretty well. Honestly, for me, this is about as good as it's gonna get. It's not gonna get much better than this for me, so I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit for this one. So now the only thing that we got left to do is to put the actual snake, Genie, into his new enclosure. Oh, and put the doors on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and we can go ahead and watch Genie enjoy his new enclosure. Let's do this. For those of you who haven't seen Genie in a while, he has grown quite a bit. So we're just gonna put him straight in here. Hopefully you guys can see. He's gonna love it. Go down there, buddy. He is the perfect snake to put in here because he's active, but he's probably gonna go in and hide to start this off to begin with, but we'll see. Look at how long he is. He is an extremely long snake. Wow, he's grown since the last time I've even taken him out. That's crazy. I think I said this in the beginning of the video, but these guys are semi-arboreal, so he'll utilize some of that height in the future. Actually, he might even do it right now. He's looking at it. So that is it for today's video, you guys. I am like really proud of this. I think this is really pretty. I think it's gonna be a great addition to my living room. It's gonna really be like something that's really gonna draw everybody's eyes in as soon as they walk in here. So I'm really happy about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me make this bioactive enclosure. If you have any questions at all, make sure you leave them down in the comment section and I'll go through them and answer them for you. And hopefully this video was helpful for you. Hopefully if this is something that you were thinking about doing, hopefully I helped you out in kind of getting some ideas of how to do it. I do want to say thank you so much to Vision Cages, my favorite enclosures on the planet, for providing this beautiful cage. I'm not sponsored by them, but as you guys know on this channel, I just enjoy their cages so much. And also, thank you to the Bio Dude. Again, not sponsored by them either, but when I went into the store, they were so helpful. So if you're actually out here in the Houston area, then I suggest checking out the Bio Dude like in person in their store. But if not, they have a ton of great stuff online and a bunch of YouTube tutorials to kind of help you out. Really helpful, and as you can see, provided everything. All the decorations for inside of this enclosure came from them. So thank you to them because they were awesome. I think Genie is enjoying his new enclosure. He's kind of exploring it right now, and he, like I said, he's utilizing that height. He is all up on the top. He hasn't even been down on the bottom of the enclosure yet. He is staying up top, utilizing that top lip that the Vision Cages have, and also the branches that I put in here for him. So it's really cool to see him interact with his new environment. And this is part of the reason why I wanted him out here, because he's such an active snake. He's always on the go, and that's what you want when you want to put something on display, right? You don't want something that's gonna just sit there all day. You want something that's gonna actively, you know, move around its enclosure and kind of engage things. With that being said, you guys, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting some food. Make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, and please share this video. Until next time, everybody, my name is Pierce LaValle. We are in Pierce's Planet. And remember, it's all about the reps, baby. Peace.